Hi, my name is Kimberly Howarth. I'm a self-taught artist in Johannesburg, South Africa. Addicted to Art asked that I do a video tutorial to inspire other artists and introduce people to different forms of art. I like to use soft pastel, charcoal, I've done acrylic paintings, but mostly I enjoy painting with watercolors. I started off by learning how to paint watercolor florals and found it easy and enjoyable. One of the first things I learned how to paint was a rose, and that is what I'm going to teach you today. So the rose I'm going to show you how to paint, I have a little sample of over here, is looking at the rose from above. This is one of the first flowers that I learned how to paint with watercolor. I've used it in lots of different pieces, and I'll show you some of those here. Okay, so before we start painting the rose, I just want to talk about the structure. So you'll see in the center of the rose, we've got the petals that are much thinner and they're tighter together. And as the rose is opening and expanding, the petals get wider and wider and the color gets lighter and lighter. Now, I've taken photos of roses, 3 different ones, which we'll show you here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The nice thing about painting roses is that no 2 roses ever look the same. They're not a uniform flower. The petals open differently, they unfold differently, which makes it a very easy flower to paint. So what I'm going to show you on the screen now is a step-by-step image of a rose which I painted. I've broken the rose down into 9 different steps. And I've put this image together so that you can pause at this point of the video, or you can come back to this point of the video when you are painting your rose, and take as long as you need to work through the different steps. So I'm going to be doing a live painting for you of a little bouquet of roses, but before we do that, I just want to talk about what supplies you need. So let's start off with your brush. I like to use this brush when painting roses, about that big or so, because the tip of the brush is pointy and it lets me do the very insides, and then I can continue to paint all petals, no matter their sizes, just by pressing firmer down, which you'll see in the video. If you don't have a brush like this, that's totally fine. You can use different size brushes. I mean, I've got a ton of different brushes. You can use something much smaller for the inside. You can use bigger brushes for the outside. It's totally up to you. So you're going to need your brush. Then you're going to need water. I've got 2 jars of water, and this is a watercolor tip that I was taught. The 1 jar I use for my reds, oranges, yellows, and the other jar I'll use for my blues, purples, and greens, and that just stops the hues from mixing on your paintbrush, which gives you a brighter color in your paint. So paintbrush, watercolor jars, and then your paint. When I started painting, I just started off with a very cheap palette, which I think I'd had for very many years, and I did quite a bit of art using that. And then as I became more familiar with watercolor painting, I then went and bought some more expensive watercolor paints. The last thing, or second to last thing you're going to need is tissue paper. You can use tissue paper, serviettes, toilet paper, anything like that. That's just to help you remove any extra water that you have on your brush. And then lastly, you need your card. So I recommend investing in some proper watercolor card. You can't paint watercolors on normal floppy paper because it's too much water for the paper, and it results in the paper crumbling or peeling apart. And no matter how good you are with your painting, you can't really do much with it afterwards. So this over here is not proper watercolor paper, it's mixed media. So I use it for watercolors and I use it for other kinds of paints and stuff. But it is 200 GSM and it does pretty good. So this is what I'm going to be using to paint our bouquet on. And I think that's it. Okay, so now we're going to start painting the roses. I'm going to do something similar to this over here. As you can see, it's very simple. 3 roses, nice and loose, and then we might do some leaves coming out the sides. So here we go. So to start, you've got to get quite a bit of pigment on your brush because the inside of the rose is very dark. I'm going to go a bit off center for our first rose. Almost like a tiny G. And then a bit more color. And we're just going to do some thinner. Could have made that first one over there a bit thinner too, but okay, so that's our very center of our rose. It's nice and tight, and we're now going to add a bit more water to the brush and start to press down a bit harder to make those petals bigger. Bit more water. I'm watering down the paint. Okay, so I like to sort of control the flow of the pigment in the rose. On this mixed media paper, the water's got quite a bit of movement, as you can see. So I'm going to use my brush to pick up unwanted color, and I'm then going to add in color where I want the petals to be darker. Okay, so I'm picking up quite a bit more color now, right on the edge of my brush to go back in and darken the center of the rose. Okay, that's our first rose. So now I'm going to use a slightly different shade of red, and we'll just start back in again. Quite a bit of pigment on the brush, and we're going to do our little twirl in the middle. Let's see, where do we want to put this one? Okay, so now pressing slightly harder, we're going to make the next layer of petals. Okay, I'm going to pick up more water on my brush, water down the pigment. we're going to press harder. So in some spots of my rose I've got too much water and too much pigment. So using my paintbrush, I'm going to pick up the pigment and I'm going to dab it on my serviette. Okay, I'm going to go back in and darken the center. There we go. We have our 3 roses. But it's still looking kind of plain, so we're going to do some simple leaves. Mix a different color green, slightly darker. And there you have it, a bouquet of roses. You can add to your bouquet, you can paint different foliage, you could add some rosebuds or other smaller flowers and then gradually just grow your bouquet bigger and bigger. But for now, that's 3 roses. Thank you very much for watching my video tutorial. I hope it has helped you or inspired you and that you've learned something. I've been watching other videos of South African artists that are addicted to art, have been posting on their social media, and they've definitely inspired me. So I hope I've done the same for you. Thank you and goodbye.